We are imagining them as community hubs of support, mental well-being, and collaborative strength. For this, we have experts with us sharing stories, strategies, and insights that will pave the way for a brighter educational journey for our children. Now, next up we have our Fireside chat, and it is entitled Collaborative Approaches Engaging Families, Communities, and Mental Health Professionals in School Support Systems. So for this chat, I would like to welcome up Professor Catherine Von Truer, CEO of the Kahn Miller Institute, Tim McNevin, Principal of Galilee School, George Lee, CEO of the Minds Synergy, and Dr. Laura Ficara, Co-President, owner and founder of Cherry Blossom Publishing. Come on up, everybody. Let's give them a round of applause as they enter the stage. Fantastic, so please take your microphones. Lovely, so Laura will be moderating. We have enough chairs there for everybody. Fantastic. Over to you then, Laura.
So much everyone for being here, and I feel very humbled with being amongst the great leaders and educators of the world. It's been a humbling experience, but I just want to start off with the esteemed Professor Catherine Von Truer. Thank you.
Please. So just by way of introduction, my name is Catherine Von Truer. I'm CEO and Provost of the Kahn Miller Institute. All we do is mental health. So we have a faculty of psychology and counselling, and we provide, of course, education in short courses, micro-credentials. We also provide and conduct quite a lot of research that a lot of universities would be envious of. And we also provide services. So our students during the training get to have placement experiences in our clinics, but they are also placed in schools, hence why we're here today. So we run with the triple helix model where our research and our services and our education all intertwine and connect with each other and ensure that what we're teaching is relevant and contemporary and evidence-based as well. So we're also one of the largest psychology training centres in Australia.
Next, we have esteemed Principal Tim McNevin.
Thank you, and good afternoon. I'm the principal of a school in Canberra in Australia, known as Galilee School. Galilee School is a classification school in Australia that's known as a special assistance school. And I stress special assistance, not specialist. So specialist schools in Australia support those young people who have a high-end and diagnosed disability. A special assistance school, however, recognises explicitly that for some young people, their social and emotional needs is the unmet factor in them finding success at school. And so as a school, we design and deliver a model of education that responds to that challenge. And so we put equal emphasis on the academic curriculum and the learning program for each young person. But we also emphasise the social and emotional learning and the challenges that can present for young people in engaging with education. And to do that, we have a model that sees a staff to student ratio maintained at about 1 to 5. And our staff consists of teachers, youth workers, and learning support staff who sit alongside our young people, meet them where they are at, understand their challenges to learning, and help them to redefine who they might be as a learner to help them engage once again in learning. So we describe our learners as yet to thrive in mainstream education. Many haven't attended school for years. If they do attend, they attend only occasionally. And if they do attend occasionally, they're probably only staying for a couple of hours every day. And so success has been elusive for these young people. And so putting them back on a pathway of success is an absolute privilege, and I'm delighted to be joining you here this afternoon.
And finally, the visionary leader and CEO, Mr. George Lee.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is George. I come from Singapore, so Lee is my last name. It's not Korean, it's Chinese. I speak Chinese as well. So, I speak with an accent, and that's who I am. We are a multicultural, multilingual, multi-identity, small little country with people coming from all over the world. I run a school back in Singapore, but with operations in Philippines, Malaysia, and China. So we teach people how to break through the mind limitation, managing stress, empowering them with techniques, pretty much into NLP, hypnotherapy, time therapy, dealing with their traumas. We train coaches, we train trainers. That is what we do as a business, as a profession. But concurrently, I'm also a young lecturer in one of our local tertiary education. So I am an active lecturer. Back in Singapore, they don't call us by our last name or our surname. They just literally call you Cher, which is short for teacher. So every lecturer, every Cher in the school is Cher. Doesn't matter whether he's a man or a woman. So that's where I come in as a on-the-ground practitioner, looking at our kids growing up and managing and facing the stress that they face, that they receive. Seemingly from someone who's supposed to love them, but ironically, it could be very well the parents who are stressing them out in our school system. So I hope to share my observation and my expertise coming from the Asian and the Midwestern side of the world. Yeah, pretty much that's it. Of course, before becoming an educator, I was actually a professional career soldier. I spent 24 years in the Singapore Army, learning and training leaders, developing characters. So that's how I developed my love for the younger generation. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And another military background, I see. I happen to know a few in the States as well. Where I'm from, New York, I am an educator. I have been teaching, I'm going to date myself, since the mid-90s, and I was very fortunate that my first experience was in a school where the principal really was a visionary and transformational leader. He had been a special education teacher before becoming the special education director of the school, before being principal. And what we did, I'm going to say we because I was one of the piloted classrooms for inclusion back in the mid to late 90s. We had visitors all over the world, and I'll tell you more about it, but about myself. I also have a research background and have some journal articles I've published in peer-reviewed articles. I also own a publishing company where we do marketing, and we actually hold retreats where we help people reach their goals of writing a book, and with online support after the retreat ends. And we will start creating these classes online as well. But we have a wonderful array of trips planned in the future, and including one in Taormina, one in New York, one in South Florida. Anyway, I would like to start off with a question for all of you from the panel. And the question is, what is the problem we are solving in our region? What specific personal stories and experience do you have to share?
So what's the problem we're trying to solve? Why have mental health working together in schools? And I just sort of shared some of these stats in an earlier conversation today in Health 2.0. And in Australia, there was a government report that was submitted in December 2023. And in that they said 1 in 7 youth was experiencing a mental health concern at any one time. But also, they mentioned that suicide was the leading cause of death among Australians aged between 15 to 24, making up 36% of all deaths. So it's quite a profound statistic, isn't it? Is it good enough? No. Do we need to do something about this? Yes, we do, and we need action urgently. And what we discovered in the earlier presentation was that this experience is actually ubiquitous. You know, no matter what country you come from, these stats won't seem to be unusual at all. Recently in the Lancet, they reported that 71% of global anxiety disorder could be avoided if youth received the relevant assessments and care that they needed. And I think the golden part of this is that the school systems provide us with a platform where we can intervene, where we can connect with families, where we can pick up those little changes in a child and hopefully prevent and early intervene. As I mentioned earlier, at any one time in Victoria, we have around 30 provisional psychologists that are based in schools. Complementing that, the government have an initiative where they want a mental health professional, be multidisciplinary, to also be based in schools. But you know what? It's not enough. So often we have a lot of the psychologists in schools that are taking their time doing a lot of assessments that are needed. You know, also learning needs for people and accommodating for that. And our students end up doing quite a lot of counselling. So we need the school system to leverage our influence and impact on mental health and recognise that while we might change one person, we also need to help change the family and the system and the school system that sits around them to affect that change. So over the last few years, we've also been involved in quite a few projects that I don't mind telling you about. Some of those have been the implementation of what we call as professional supervision. So as a psychologist working in Australia, part of keeping up our registration is that we have to have a mandated amount of peer supervision and also supervision and continuous professional development to continue to be accredited or registered. And what that does is it continuously improves our practice, it keeps us safe, and it also is a time to check in about our own mental health and prevent burnout as well. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? So, but we do have to do this. So what we've actually had done is we've had early childcare workers, we've had teachers, and we've even had school principals reach out and say, actually, I would like a bit of this. And so we've been providing, say, school leaders and principals amongst the Catholic Education Office, we've been providing them with professional supervision. We've been intervening in schools in the Northern Territory. We worked with remote and rural teachers up there who are in the early stages of their career. And for over 30 years, we've had a program called the Big Tent, which has been providing supervision to early childcare workers. Now, 30 years is a profound amount of time for a training program to continue. It continues without being government funded. So we provide these programs as part of our charity and then through donations. And there's a long wait list to be part of that. So what we do, I believe, is that we fill a little bit of a gap of mental health learning. People can come to those sessions, whether it's group supervision or individual supervision, talk about difficult challenges that they have in the classroom, and just get other people's perspective on it. Just to give you an example, in the early childcare setting, we had one of the people we've been working with who'd been part of the Big Tent program, said she turned up to a kindergarten where they had a child who'd been expelled from 3 other kindergartens. How do you get to 3 years old and be expelled from 3 kindergartens? And indeed, this child's first day at that kindergarten, he threw a chair through a window and a staff member walked out. So through the supervision, the staff were able to talk about the difficulties with the child. They took a strengths-based approach. So they observed the child for a while, drew the family genogram, wrote the pressures going on in the family, coming back to the centre and putting the child in the centre of the issue. The child seemed to really like the local wizard that they kept at the kindergarten, and that was observed for a while, and then the kindergarten field officer who we'd been working with said, he seems to really like this lizard. Let's see, why don't we make him the lizard monitor in the school? So then we're in kindergarten, and he barricaded himself in the lizard, and one at a time he let the students come in and observe the lizard, and then eventually he took down the barriers and started to integrate and started to socialise with some of the other children. In the meantime, the mother, who's also part of the system, she was suggested to her, perhaps get a little furry rabbit or something that he can be responsible for or take care of. So she got him a rabbit. 6 months on, the kindergarten field officer was back in that kindergarten, and the mother was there on lunch duty. The first time she'd ever done lunch duty, she had a haircut. Since her son was born, this was the first time she had a haircut. So she'd been so preoccupied with the issues to do with her son. So while that's just one example, a kindergarten field officer says, had it not been for the Big Tent and their sort of intervention programs, she would have left a long time ago. And in the time between doing the Big Tent program and seeing us, she was seeing 1,000 families. So through our intervention programs at this sort of level, we're not wanting to feed a man a fish, we're wanting to teach them how to fish and to manage these situations, the challenging situations, which often just need that little bit of support, monthly to sort of put the story together and to make a difference and change. So there's some examples. I'll stop and hand over, but there's some examples of the sort of things that we do at the Canberra Institute. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Go ahead, Mr. Tim.
I think a good segue to the previous response is my response. The problem that we are trying to solve, so to speak, is this notion of disengagement from learning. And this is not a new phenomenon, as many of you know. Our school this year celebrates its 25th anniversary, and this will be my 8th year in the school. And this notion of disengagement was at the essence of why our school was established in the first place. I'm not one to criticise the mainstream education system. For the vast majority of learners, it does a great job. And many of us in this room, if not all of us in this room, are probably products of mainstream education models. They do work, but they do not work for everybody. And so we like to talk about a language of an education ecosystem, and our school is one school in the ACT, or Canberra Education Ecosystem. And our narrative is about putting the learner at the centre of the conversation and asking what's best for them. And if the answer to that question is Galilee School, then great. And if the answer is yes for them is Galilee School, it's because they haven't found an answer in the other mainstream or alternate education systems available to them. But many do. So the problem is this notion of disengagement. And alongside disengagement, I think, is also a notion of personal narrative. It's how does that young person regard themselves? What is their opinion of themselves? What do they believe they are capable of? Or perhaps, what have they learned that they are not capable of? And what are the messages they receive from their environments, either through education or at home, that reinforces that narrative? So many of our learners experience very complex mental health conditions. Many have come from a trauma background. Much of that is intergenerational. Many are dealing with substance use disorders, and a number of them have comorbidity issues associated with those challenges. And those barriers are real. And those barriers manifest themselves in ways that many of us can only imagine. But for example, a young person who's affected by trauma or adverse childhood experiences perhaps, will struggle with ideas of trust. They will have real issues with anybody who's in a position that they perceive to have power or authority. Notions of empathy are very challenging. As I said, their self-perception is difficult, and their fight or flight responses are very acute. And it's those challenges that young person has that sees them collide with the expectation of mainstream education in many situations and circumstances. And so our challenge is about helping them reinterpret that perception of who they are and to overcome some of those challenges that they experience. Our model of education at Galilee School, as I said, is a staff-to-student ratio of 1 to 5. We're a small school, deliberately so. We have 2 campuses, and that's also done deliberately because we're not looking to create and design a complex environment where so many other school settings are. We're building our model of education on relationship, and that takes time. But as a small school with a staff-to-student ratio that we do, we're an expensive model of education. The vast majority of our expenditure is on staff salaries. And so in order for us to meet the complex needs of the young people at our school, we must collaborate with professionals in other areas of community where expertise we don't have is held. And so mental health professionals, allied health professionals, physical health professionals are the people that we journey with together. But that notion of relationship and trust cannot be overstated. And so our role as a school is not only to build that trust and relationship with the young person in the school, but to also provide a safe environment where those allied health professionals, mental health professionals and physical health professionals can come to into the learner's space, into the young person's space, in a way that honours and respects the young person, in a way that acknowledges the need for safety, and in a way that supports them to build that trust and relationship with those health professionals in a way that they found very, very difficult in the past. And so we do that by building a relationship between ourselves as a school and those organisations first. They need to understand us. They need to understand our cohort of young people. And we need to be sure that they are coming from the right place, with the right capacity, and the right skills, and the right level of understanding to be able to connect with our young people. Because for so many of our young people, their experience of those health professionals in the past, and this is not a criticism, has been substandard, suboptimal, hasn't delivered results for them. They've told their story so many times as they've journeyed through the juvenile justice system, for example. And so our job in collaborating with the community is to do so in a way that we honour and respect our young people and allow them to get the help and support, encouragement that they need to overcome those barriers to education and redefine themselves as a learner.
Thank you so much for your insight. And finally, Mr. George Lee.
Yes. So I would like to add on to what you shared about mainstream and alternate education. But before I start my observation, I would just like to pop a question to the floor. How many of us here are actually educators, meaning you are a teacher in an institution, in a school, where you actually teach someone? Just a show of hands. Great. So keep your hands up, keep your hands up. Now, how many of us are involved on a journey of evaluating the students that you teach at the end of your educational journey, telling them that, oh, you know what, you got an A, you got a B, and sorry, you got a D, you failed the subject. How many of us are victim or culprit of doing that? So I see some hands, like teachers, you're supposed to teach the students, right? That's our job. And then at the end of the teaching journey, now teachers, you're supposed to evaluate, you're supposed to assess them or assassinate them by giving them a D, an F, and telling them that, you know what, you didn't make the cut. You are a lousy student. Now, is the question, are you a lousy student or am I a lousy teacher? How many of us felt that way? Like I'm supposed to fail the student that I am supposed to teach at the end of 6 months and telling them that I failed as a teacher. Now I teach both the mainstream education and also the alternate because I run the NLP school. So interested students who are keen on learning NLP, they will ask me, so George, are there any exams in your course? And when I told them that, no, there's no exam in this course, they are shocked. Like, what is a course or what is an education without an exam? Does that question bring something familiar in your head? What is education if there's no exam? Who support that statement? Like, I'm a strong believer of education without exam. Study, yes. Exam, no. Hands up. But how many of us teachers in schools, we are gauged and evaluated ourselves by the grades that our students get, not by their liking or their preference of how you teach the class, but by the alphabet that they get at the end of your teaching journey. So it kind of like set me thinking, what is the education system offering us? Is it a journey for us to learn, or is it a destination, be it or any kind of result, like congratulations, you got A, you promote yourself to the next level, or I'll see you again next year in the same level. So that kind of like set me really thinking hard. What if our mainstream education can do without exams and let the students' life be their real exam result? And what if education is not a destination, but a process? So what's the end of education? There's no end. The grade that students get doesn't really affect their life. It's what they do with education that they receive on this journey that makes them come back for more. So education, from my perspective, it is not a destination. It is a journey. It's the effort that counts, but not the result. And if they like the effort, you'll come back for more. So the true spirit of educating someone is to make that person come back for more education. Education is addictive. So that's where I love education. I'm an addict myself. I love sharing, talking, teaching people how to learn more. And the process of learning is, well, sadly to say, is to unlearn a lot of wrong things that we have learned in the past and then relearn it correctly. And as we are learning, at this very second, as we are speaking, you guys are learning something because we are all sharing our experience. Guess what? There are more things evolving out there that needs us to learn again and again. So the pace of learning cannot be, it can't match up to how the world is evolving right now. And it's a very scary world out there. And I guess that part of the mental stress of the students that we are teaching, not being able to get the grades, not the grade that they want, but the grade that the society wants out of them to be matchable to what they are actually doing justice to education. So yeah, I hope that observation of mine do put us into a thinking position, like what are we actually doing as lecturers, as teachers, as parents, as coaches, as someone who's trying to teach a young life out there to really learn something new. Is it a journey or is it the result that counts?
So much, and all of your sentiments on the topic. I want to discuss in the United States the issue that I see from when I first piloted inclusion, which the model we used was a very costly model, but it was effective. I had a special education teacher. I was the general education teacher at that time, and a special education teaching assistant who could run circles around any teacher I've ever met to date. And the results were amazing. The enthusiasm from the students, I have never witnessed again. We did a lot of project-based learning, we did a lot of integrating, we did a lot of themes. Then I came back into the system in New York City after many years of not being in their system and couldn't believe the change that I saw. And it was all, unfortunately, about the money. Because that model, although it was proven to be effective, I have a thesis on that actually. It's not practical. It's too costly, and with all the cuts, they're not able to sustain. So now you have an industry of kids that are really takes a lot of patience and innovation and energy to help learn and guide. Without the financial support of a system that was created for the Industrial Revolution, not for today's world. We have the same system that was created to create factory workers and not critical thinkers. And just because you're labeled with something does not determine your future success. There are plenty of, Quentin Tarantino was one that comes to mind. He had a lot of different learning disabilities and emotional issues due to his learning disabilities and how he felt about himself that you talked about. And it did not stop him from being one of the best directors for his time, one of the most renowned. So really reframing how we look at mental education, reassessing, like George mentioned, reassessing how we assess the students and creating a model that is sustainable and not just a fad. So I'm looking at the time, and I'm not sure if, I know we started really late, if we're allowed to do our hopes, because I know we talked about a lot of them. And I would like to take it back to you, Catherine, if you don't mind.
Continue to work collaboratively and in a multidisciplinary way to increase mental health literacy, to build civil and supportive environments, whether they're the school environment or wherever we are, and to encourage people to be courageous, to have those difficult conversations, with children, with parents, in order to be able to help and share ideas and have success and reduce stigma and to make it okay for someone to have a mental health disorder. That would be my hope for the future.
I share your hope and would add, there's a model of education, something you might be familiar with, which is known as a full service school. A full service school sees education, allied health, mental health, and physical health co-located in the one setting, which ensures timely intervention in the lives of the young people, access to support for their families, and wraparound services that deal with the challenges that a young person has right now, so that they can overcome that challenge when they need to, and can re-engage in education when they can, and not at a time in the future after the referral pathway may have taken some months and months to be addressed. And locally, our plan is to establish and open a third campus of our school where that model of education is present.
For education as an industry and for all of us here in this room as educators is that we enjoy the process of education or educating someone without having this conflict of interest of trying to fit the young lives, the people that we are teaching into this very oxymoron bell curve that we are given, where every class has the top 5% and the bottom 5% and the rest of it is like 90% are the majority. And it is kind of sad because if I'm given the authority and the liberty to grade every one of my students, all of them are actually A students in their own role. So when we ask this question to our students, how do you like the class? I hope everyone and anyone that actually sits in my class will say that I enjoy the process. That's it. The process is what matters. That's what they're paying for. It's not about the grades. It's not about the result. It's not about the alphabet that you get at the end of the journey. So my hope for education worldwide is where everyone enjoys the process of teaching and learning simply as a process itself. And they are coming back more and more for the process, just like the holiday. How many of us come into Dubai enjoying the process instead of looking at the destination? Now, what's the end destination of this trip? It's all of us going back home from wherever you came from. So if you always begin with the end in mind, that's it. The end is the end of the world. But that's not the real spirit of education. It's about spending every single minute, every single hour, enjoying the relationship, the interaction, and also learning something that you truly are interested in. So that's my hope. That's my hope where grades are no longer a determining factor or a label to someone's future, but simply by the attitude that this learner puts in the class and say that, Mr. So-and-so or teacher, I actually enjoy learning from you. Can I come back to you for more classes? And we don't even have to talk about exams, because the real exams is when they go out there and they live their life happy as they should be. That's my hope.
Wonderful responses to that. I'll ditto all of them and then do a personal one. So my hope for the future is that physical illness and mental illness have the equal footing. And whereas no one would think to go for a foot surgery to an orthopedic surgeon without an MRI, there have been great advances in mental health with PET scans, where I know Dr. Daniel Amen, started in Texas, has this wonderful system where he has people take their PET scan, determine exactly what their condition is. He could tell if they'll develop Alzheimer's or dementia. It tells you everything you need to know. And then he prescribes the medication and then repeats it after a certain amount of time on the medication to see the change. And if now it's a normal brain, as we want to say, but without the traumatic issues that the brain is going through during times of despair or anxiety. And just instead, we have pharmaceutical companies that run our country's medical system and play Russian roulette on children, on adults, on everyone with mental health problems. And that, I feel, is my hope that changes, and that the correct protocol is taken as any other field in medicine. Thank you so much. Again, thank you everyone, and I don't know if we have time for questions or not. No, I'm sorry, but you can find us, and we would love to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to our wonderful speakers. Well, let's make sure that we do connect with them and ask those questions if we do have them. And while they take a photo, let's everybody stand up. Let's have a stretch. Who feels like they need to move? Who feels like that kid in the classroom that's sitting down, rolling around, out of their seats? All right, check it out, everybody. That's the way. Fantastic. Let's give them another round of applause.